One day, I thought to myself, I talk a lot about the same coasters in my videos. Sometimes it's nice to talk about something else. As I've gotten more credits, the more I've had to talk about the coasters I've ridden. But today, we're going to talk about coasters I haven't ridden. Another reason I wanted to do this video is to let y'all know what I'm planning for next year. We'll be visiting so many different parks, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 different credits I'll be getting on that trip. I'm hoping to make this a series. I have a wheel that I spun 80 different coasters I'll be doing on this trip. That means it'll take me 16 parts to get through all of these coasters. I did spin the coasters for part 1 already, so it's time to share with you what 5 coasters I'll be previewing in today's video. Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain, Hades 360 at Mount Olympus, Max Force at Six Flags Great America, Flight Deck at California's Great America, Ninja at Six Flags St. Louis. Tatsu is a B&M flying coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California, which is my biggest bucket list park in North America. Home to the most coasters out of any park in the world with 20, Tatsu looks like one of the better coasters at the park. Lots of people say it's one of the best, and I even know someone who has it as their favorite at Magic Mountain. Tatsu is the tallest, fastest, and longest flying coaster in North America. It opened in 2006, which means it's turning 16 years old this year. From what I've heard from multiple sources, this ride is smooth, especially for its age. I've ridden 3 B&M flyers, and they are all pretty decently smooth, kind of. I expect this to be even smoother, which is nice. Tatsu has the typical B&M flyer vests you'll see on the others, good for what they are, but can get uncomfortable sitting on the brake ground for long enough. Getting into the layout a little bit, you go up the lift hill, which gives a beautiful mountain view ahead of you from the looks of it. You can also see the roaring rapids if you look down. After that, you'll go through your 111-foot drop, which is kind of short compared to its 170-foot height. However, it is a terrain coaster. The drop turns to the right. After that, you go through a corkscrew. I've done a corkscrew on Mantis, so I can imagine this is a decent inversion, but nothing insane. However, I do expect it to be better than that one, especially since it's right after the first drop. You then go through your zero-G roll, which I've never experienced on a B&M flyer before. Very excited to feel that. I'd imagine it's a similar feeling to the corkscrew, but a little better. You go through a couple bank turns from the right to the left, which I'm sure are fun, in between the best element on the ride. The element I'll be waiting for, which is the pretzel loop. Having experienced it on 3 other B&M flyers before, I know how insane this element is going to be. It feels like you're being crushed by some sort of monster before rising up into the air again. It feels like a movie, and this being a terrain coaster, I'm sure makes this even better. And after this is your inline twist, which ends off every B&M flying coaster I've ridden. One thing about B&M flying coasters I don't like is the more I ride them, the less I like them. They can make me feel really lightheaded if I do them too much. I'm hoping it's different with this ride, but luckily there's many other coasters to do in between, which means I won't get as many rides in on this. That might sound like a bad thing that I'm getting less rides, but for a B&M flyer, that's not exactly a bad thing because I do tend to like them less than a re-ride than when I first get the credit. Now, Tatsu looks very unique as far as what I've heard from many people, as far as it's such an awesome feeling being that high up on a flying coaster. This ride being located through a mountain really looks to give an awesome sense of height. I love feeling the sense of height on flying coasters. That's why I like Superman at Great Adventure more than Superman at Over Georgia. Another thing to add is that they did repaint this coaster. It used to be 2 shades of orange, dark orange track and light orange supports, but now it's orange track and green supports. I think it looks nice either way personally. Where am I expecting it to rank? I think it should be my favorite flying coaster, my 6th favorite at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Hades 360 is a gravity group wooden roller coaster at Mount Olympus in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. This park has intrigued me for a while now. It looks so unique, and one of the biggest reasons I'm really excited for it is because of their star attraction, Hades 360. Built in 2005 as Hades, it featured a nice long ride featuring the longest underground section on a coaster in the world. It then got changed to Hades 360 in 2013, as it added a corkscrew right after it comes out of the tunnel for the first time. This ride has a height of 136 feet, but drops below ground at 140 feet. Hades 360 does have a reputation for being very rough. It's a very hard coaster to marathon, I've heard from many people. I've ridden 3 Gravity Group coasters at the time of this video: Switchback, Oscar's Wacky Taxi, and Ravine Flyer 2. I think Hades 360 looks considerably better than any of the 3 Gravity Group coasters I've ridden. This ride does have Timberliner trains Gravity Group is known for. I'm a huge fan of Timberliners, and I'm excited to see how they feel on this coaster. Let's get into the layout. You first drop out of the station through one of the best pre-lifts of all time. I've heard there's tons of ejector airtime moments here, and better airtime than lots of other coasters out there, so I'm really looking forward to this. After this is your 136-foot lift hill. You don't get too much of a view going up, maybe some foggy hills in the distance, but that's the most you'll get. Then you go down the first drop into the tunnel, which takes place under the parking lot. You go through a bunch of mini dips and at one point a small outer bank pop. You rise up on the other side of the parking lot into the corkscrew. This is very unique for a coaster with wooden track. This is one of the first wooden coasters to ever invert. I'm sure this inversion will be very fun, and the hand chopper looks insane. I haven't experienced an element like this to compare it to, so I'm really interested in seeing how this inversion is. You bank to the right and go through a bunny hill until you reach your drop back into the tunnel, where you go through more pops of airtime underneath the parking lot. You rise up out of it into a floater airtime hill from the looks of it. You then turn right after that a few times and go through a couple small airtime hills, then turn a couple more times to the left before reaching your final brakes, which is elevated a bit from the station, so you do dip down into the station, which I think is funny. I'm really curious to see how this coaster rides for me. Sometimes a lot of roughness can be too much for me, but that's usually on steel coasters, so I'm hoping I'll be able to tolerate this ride, the bite that this ride has, and even possibly think it adds to the ride. This is the number one reason I want to come back to this park, and even with a few other great looking woodies, Hades 360 is one of my top bucket list woodies out there. And not come back to the park, but come there, as I've never been there. I'm super excited to give it some goes. Where do I think it'll rank? Well, by the time I ride it, I expect it to be my second favorite Gravity Group, only behind the Voyage. And of course, I think it'll be my favorite coaster in the park, as well as the best coaster in Wisconsin. Max Force is an S&S compressed air launch coaster at Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. This is one of the premier parks in the Six Flags chain, and Max Force is one of the premier coasters at that park. This ride opened in 2019, and it's pretty polarizing, I'd say. I think everyone who rides it says it's a good ride, but you either really like it or love it. I'm really curious to see how I rank it. I've never done anything really like this ride before. It does have the best acceleration on a coaster in North America. Really looking forward to that. This has a top height of 175 feet and a top speed of 78 miles an hour with 4 inversions. So some pretty impressive stats. The one flaw a lot of people have with this is it's a very short ride. I could definitely see this being a huge factor for me, because rides like Storm Runner, Top Thrill Dragster, King to Kai, and Wonder Woman Golden Master Coaster suffer from being so short. If they were longer, they would rank way higher. It's probably the same with this. Again, just speculating. Max Force is also said to be pretty smooth. Now let's get into the ride's layout. You start off with a compressed air launch that takes you up to 78 miles an hour in just 1.8 seconds, which is the fastest acceleration in North America. You then pop into an airtime hill up into the Dog Tongue. Very interesting name for an element. This consists of 2 inversions. It's kind of like an Immelman and dive loop combo. Then you go into your Heartland roll, which is the fastest inversion in the world, moving at 60 miles an hour. And after that, you'll rise up into the max dive loop, which is a dive loop that twists you before you go back down the inversion. And after that are the final brakes. Yeah, it's a very short coaster. 4 or 5 elements in total, from drop to brakes. In the official POV, it lasts about 22 seconds, so this is beyond short. Launch to brakes. That's what makes me so hesitant about this ride. I know I'm gonna love the launch. It looks incredible. but other than that, it has a few inversions that look pretty fun, but that's it. I have heard from many people that the launch is what makes the ride, but the rest doesn't really do much to add to it other than extending the ride. It doesn't really extend it that much. When this ride first got built, I thought it was too overhyped by some people, so I've never been the biggest believer of this ride. However, it could very well shock me. Maybe it'll be my favorite in the park. Who knows? A lot of people out there say the launch on Max Force is better than the launch on Top Thrill Dragster, and it has more elements than Dragster, so they like it more. For me, I think it depends on whether the launch is as good or not, but I think it could rank in that range. However, I still think I'll prefer Dragster, Ka, and Stormrunner because of the max speed, top hats, and on Stormrunner, the better elements. But I am so excited for this ride. It's going to be awesome to finally ride it. This is one of the first coasters I remember being announced as an enthusiast, so it's going to be cool to finally ride it. As far as rankings go, you just saw where I expected to rank overall, but in the park, I expect it to be my third favorite coaster. I really hope it surprises me. That would be awesome since I'm still expecting this to be awesome. Flight Deck is a B&M inverted coaster at California's Great America in Santa Clara, California. This is one of 3 B&M inverts in California, and it's widely considered the worst in the state. It does have the least impressive stats in the state. It has a height of only 102 feet, speed of 50 miles an hour, a length of 2,260 feet, and it has only 3 inversions. It's among the shortest and slowest B&M inverts out there. It's tied with Monster at Gronalon for the least amount of inversions on an invert, and it's the lone shortest B&M invert in the world. Now, it was only the second B&M invert to ever open, so you can see why the stats aren't as impressive. It opened back in 1993, so it's got some age to it, considering how old it is, and since it's made by B&M, since they sometimes give a signature rattle, I'm curious to see the smoothness of this ride. For the most part, this isn't known to be a rough ride, but I have seen a couple of people out there complain of headbanging. Really hard to say until you ride though. Flight Deck has the typical B&M over-the-shoulder restraints, which are pretty solid restraints, and I know they'll be solid restraints considering I've already ridden tons of B&M inverts with these restraints. Let's get into the lap. You go up the 102-foot lift hill, and it doesn't look like much at first, just a massive parking lot in front of you with a little bit of CGA to the sides. But as an NFL fan, I personally can't wait to go up this lift and hopefully get the right side because Levi Stadium is to your right, which is the San Francisco 49ers home stadium. After this is your first drop, which turns slightly to the left before the drop. It doesn't look insane, but I do think it looks underrated because of the angle at which it's taken. I'm not sure what the actual angle is, but it looks pretty steep for an invert. It is short though, but I figure maybe that could possibly help it in a way. I'm not exactly sure. But after that is a vertical loop, pretty standard. Then comes an upward helix, which is a very interesting location for a helix. The third element being a helix isn't something you see every day. But after that, you'll dip down into your 0-0, where then you'll meander just a little bit before heading into the third and final inversion, the corkscrew. After this is a helix to the left before turning to the right into the final brakes. So very short indeed. However, will this ruin the ride for me? Well, I don't think the duration will play too much of a role in deciding whether I like it or not. I'm very weird when it comes to B&M inverted coasters. There's a couple I hate because of the foot numbing that it causes. Some of them I can tolerate the foot numbing, and some have a limited foot numbing, which then leaves me liking the ride depending on its elements. And I do think this ride is going to have a decent amount of foot numbing on the final helix from what I've seen and heard. Maybe even that random helix towards the beginning of the ride. However, I think it'll be tolerable, and I doubt I'll hate this ride for that reason. Will I hate this ride for being too short? No, most likely not. I really don't think I'll dislike this ride at all. I expect this ride to be a mid to upper tier B&M invert. I could see it being as high as Raptor, which currently sits as my number 71, but as low as Montu, which currently sits as my number 118. I know, my standards for coasters are way different from an overwhelming majority of people. All in all, I'm excited to get on this coaster. I'm always excited for a new invert credit, since they're one of the hardest coaster models to predict in my opinion. As far as rankings go, I expect it to be my third favorite coaster at California's Great America, my second favorite being Invert in California. I'm not including Batman the Ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain in this series, so I might as well say here, I'm not looking forward to that one. Much more excited for Flight Deck. Ninja is an aerodynamics custom looping coaster at Six Flags St. Louis in Eureka, Missouri. Part of it is made by Vekoma actually because they needed to finish the project as Aero didn't, but this is one of the most hated coasters on the planet. Most people who ride this seem to not enjoy this ride at all. There are a handful of people out there who like this ride, but they usually don't mind roughness and love classic coasters, and they typically love Aero. Speaking of the roughness, this ride certainly doesn't look smooth. That's the main con people have with this ride. The over-the-shoulder restraints are near your ears, so if this ride is indeed rough, that can be bad. For me personally, Steamin' Demon was rough, but not too bad. However, it's considered to be really rough as well. Same with Corkscrew at Cedar Point. So I'm curious to see how bad the roughness and headbanging really is. Ninja has a height of 108 feet, speed of 55 miles an hour, length of 2,428 feet, and it has 4 inversions. All are decent stats for an aero looper. Not bad, but not great compared to some others. Ninja opened in 1989. It's a pretty old ride. I do see this coaster closing soon, so I really hope it at least lasts until next year so I can ride it. It would suck if it closed ahead of time. Lots of people would say that's a good thing, but I need the credit. Let's get to the layout. You go up the lift and get a view of the surrounding park and hills, then you turn right into the first drop, reminding me of Viper. Of course, I'm sure it isn't as good as Viper's. After that, you go through a typical aero vertical loop. You follow that by going through a sidewinder. You turn left into the mid-course, reminding me of Anaconda, which I'm not a fan of, so I can see this bar being extremely rough and boring. You do a small drop before turning right into your double corkscrew, which I'm sure is the roughest pair of inversions on the ride. Then you'll turn right, then go through a left helix into the brake run. So after assessing the layout, I can say this ride won't be great. Based on some of the elements on Anaconda and the roughness of Steamin' Demon's corkscrew, I can imagine how this ride feels. It's probably even worse. I mean, I expected to like Anaconda and even defended the ride well before I even rode it. Turns out I really disliked the ride. So, will I like it? I don't think so. However, I don't think I'll hate it either. It looks better than Anaconda. I hope it's better than Anaconda. It has a straight first drop, which I do love on aero loopers, and it has a straight mid-course drop. I'm really hoping they give good airtime, more specifically the first one. Most aero loopers do get very good airtime on their first drops. I really have not heard anything about Ninja's drop. I expect it to be at least a little fun. As far as rankings go, I think it'll be towards the bottom of my aero loopers list, and that's Six Flags St. Louis. I'd say I think it'll rank 6th or 7th in the park, but I'm leaning 7th. This ride is really the case of expecting the worst, but hoping for the best. Alright, that's going to do it for this part 1 video. This was the first of previewing 5 coasters I'll be riding on my 2023 graduation road trip. I've got lots more to go. I had a little bit of trouble speaking in this one, but I mean, if you enjoyed it anyway, I'd recommend subscribing, sharing, most importantly, staying tuned so that you won't miss the rest of them I upload. Please let me know what you agree and disagree with, and if you've ridden these coasters, tell me what's accurate and what's not, and maybe some tips about these parks even. But that's going to be all for this video. Please share the video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later.